hands that I have in my life. So we have people who have better destiny, so-called. We have people who have a little bit maybe not so good destiny. Yeah, we born in different situations. Sometimes we born in healthy body, beautiful body, in rich family, or sometimes somebody can take birth, in not very rich, in poor family, and have bad health or not so beautiful and so on. And maybe you wonder what it depends on. Why some people have a good destiny, so-called. Some people have not very good destiny, and the answers for these questions are quite simple. Quite simple because, as ancient Vedic scripture says, that the cause of this thing is that we do some things, and there is action and there is reaction for our our things that we do. And people who don't understand that this law of karma, sometimes they a little bit confused. They don't understand, why me, or why things goes on with me. Sometimes they even try to blame some laws of nature or blame God or something, that something seems like unfair, that for somebody life is very easy and nice, and for somebody life is very difficult struggle, and not even life, but oftentimes we met some situations. Sometimes good things happen in our life. We have a good fortune, everything is great, and after some time, some bad things could happen to us, and our life looks like zebra, this animal, like white stripes and black stripes. And our life is like this, this zebra. White stripe, that everything is good, and then suddenly we fail exam, and we have to, study again and go through all this hassle, or tooth starts, aching or something. We have a toothache, and but after this black stripe, white stripe comes again, and everything is all right again. Maybe you experience. I think everybody experienced this things. So, what is karma? Karma means action, and sometimes we do some good actions. Meaning that we can help somebody. We can help or say some even nice words, and by our action we can produce some nice things and some pleasure. We give some pleasure to somebody. And sometimes we consciously, or even not really consciously, but sometimes we can do some bad things. I mean that due to our actions or due to our even words, we can create some, maybe a little suffering for other creatures, for human beings, or not only for human beings, even for animals or for plants. And if somebody experiences some suffering due to us, according to this, fair law of nature, we have to experience back the same feelings that we created to other creatures. It comes back to us, and therefore we have to experience some reaction. For our good action, we have good reaction, we have good destiny, and so on, and good things happen to us. And for our bad actions, this bad experience comes to us again, and we have, so-called bad karma. And it goes and goes on and on, and this is kind of law of nature. This is like we have different laws of nature, like, for example, law of gravity. That things just fall down. We cannot do anything with this. It just built into this world, this law of nature, gravity. Yeah. So we have many more the subtle laws of nature that scientists couldn't describe in detail or couldn't explain in detail, but still they work. They we can experience this. This law of karma, sometimes they call it like, for example, in Christian scriptures, Jesus Christ told that as you sow, so shall you reap. This is the same. As you sow, so shall you reap. So, and this law is very individual. It's not like that. I don't respond. I'm not responsible for somebody else's action, and I don't experience something that I'm not guilty. Just somebody else did something, and I have to be responsible. No, it's not. It's not like this. We experience individually. Like everybody of us have, this body, and everybody of us are individual. And some things that goes on in our body is unknown for people in different bodies. We can experience some pleasure, or we can experience some pain. For example, like toothache. I can sit here and, suffer from toothache, sometimes from severe toothache. But if somebody will sit close to me, he will not know about this and not experience. You would probably not experience what I experience. It's just personal experience. And similarly, like this law of karma is individual. We don't respond for anybody. Sometimes mistakenly people say that there is like karma of nation or karma of country or karma of this family. It's not exactly correct. For example, like karma of some country or some nation. Everybody experiences individually some similar things, something like this. Or in one family, some kid could have some, disease that, for example, daughter can have some disease that mother had and grandmother had, But it's not like this daughter is responsible for the action that, grandmom did something wrong 100 years ago. This grandchild doesn't responsible for her actions. And the same thing, if I did something wrong, sometimes we, screw up some things and, do some little cosy things, but why should our children or our even great children be responsible for that I did something wrong today or yesterday? It's not fair. So this is very individual, and this is law of individual responsibility. Sometimes this describes that there are three types of karma. One type of karma is karma that we experience right now. Just right now we have some, health condition or some situation in our job or something, in family situation, something that we experience right now. Second type of karma is karma or reaction for our actions that we will experience soon, like, maybe in a few months or in a few years, something that is waiting for us. And the third type of karma is karma that we will experience in the long future, like maybe at the end of this life, or maybe in next life, or I don't know, maybe in 2 lives, something like this. So the karma is in the form of kind of seed, is waiting for the fruit. And sometimes people don't understand. People who don't understand or don't know about this law of karma, they could say, why bad things happen to good people? Sometimes we can see that we see some good people, and sometimes bad things happen to good people, and sometimes good things happen to really bad people, like some drug dealers or something, some mafiosi, some criminals. They create many suffering around them. Sometimes they even could kill people or something, and they are rich, and they enjoy life, and somebody can say that, it's unfair that these bad people who create so many suffering to others, they enjoy life. They just live like happy life, so-called. And so it means, how we can explain this? It means that for these bad people, there is, this white stripe now. There is a period of time when they have to experience these good reactions for some good actions in the past. And the same with good people who can experience some bad things happen to them. It means that in the past they did something wrong, and now there is a period of time when they have to experience, this bad reaction for these bad things that they did in the past. Sometimes also such things could happen, like children can be born with some diseases, some disabled children can be born, or some invalids, and people who don't understand this law of karma, they also a little bit confused, like, what's wrong? What did this child bad when he could did some bad things in the womb of mother, or what she could do, or what he could do some bad. So it means that in previous life they did something, and therefore in this life, in present life, they had to be born in this bad health body. Like, for example, this criminals that we said a few moments before, this drug dealers or something, we can't see. In the next life, they can be born like this children, invalids and disabled, children like this. So it explains suffering in this world, that it's our responsibility, it's our actions that did this. So this subject of karma is connected with subject of reincarnation, past lives and future life. And it's impossible to clearly understand the law of karma without this understanding of reincarnation. Think, what is reincarnation? Sometimes people can, fascinate like this and try to guess. I just wonder, it's interesting who I was in my past life, and sometimes you can fulfill some, test and to know that who you was and who you were in this previous life, and you can see from this kind of test that in my previous life I was like prince or something, or Napoleon or some some knight, this, or the horse, or I was born like some lady can say that I was a princess of something, princess of Monaco in my last life, but it's not exactly like this. We don't know exactly who we were in past life. There are some methods where when you can remember your past life, but it's very rarely, and it's a lot of cheating in this area, but there are some methods. Some people, maybe some, very little amount of people on the earth can, somehow do that. You can remember your past life, but actually it's not big value in this remembering your past life, because in past life, you were who you were, and you can't change this. But more important is to think who you can become in next life. Sometimes people ask me, do you remember your past life? Do you know who you were in your past life? And I say, yes, I know who I were in my past life. They say, what? Who you were in your past life? And you know what is answer? I answer, the same person that I'm in this life, I was in the past life. I was the same person like now, because we are not these bodies. Remember, we talk about this, that we are not these bodies. So who am I? Do you know already who we are? Who am I? Who can say? Do you remember? That we are spirit soul. We are this spiritual living being inside these bodies. And these bodies is just like a cover. It's just like suit of clothes. And I am spirit soul in this life, and this body is just like a vehicle surrounded this me, like spirit soul. And in my past life, I was also spirit soul, just different type of body. And we don't remember our past life because due to arrangement of nature, because it's not very easy. Sometimes people say, "Oh, if I could remember my past life, maybe I would live a different life in this life." But it's not exactly like this. We don't remember our past life because it would be a little bit difficult for us to live in this life if we would remember our previous life. Because in each life we have not only good things happen to us, but sometimes, sometimes very bad things could happen to us. And we all living beings experience birth, diseases, old age, and death. It's not very pleasant. It's not very good. And also in every life, we meet some other people. We can get friends, and sometimes we have some parents. Not sometimes, always we have some parents. We can have some kids, and due to arrangement of nature, we in every life sometimes we lost our parents, and sometimes we can lose our children. It's sometimes in loving relationship I can fall in love with somebody, and then we can separate somehow, or the biggest pain, psychologists, they just discover that the biggest pain, they research the subject, and they try to discover what is the biggest pain that can experience a person. And they made some experiments that when somebody just, I don't know, can have some toothache or can lost money or can have some argument with husband wife things, and they discover that the biggest pain is when you lose somebody who you love, like the loss of persons that you love. This is the biggest pain. And in every life we have this, we lose somebody who we love, and sometimes for person difficult to live the rest of their life due to some bad events. And can you imagine how life it would be in our present life if we would remember all this, losing our close people, relatives from our past lives, many past lives? It would be impossible to live in this life. And therefore, when we get born, we just forget all this previous experience, and we start from the white list of paper, as we call. And we can start from the beginning, enjoy life. Everything is great, plans for future, hope for better life, and so on. So therefore, it's arranged by nature that we don't remember our past lives. But it doesn't mean that that we hadn't past life. There are a lot of stories of people who can remember their past life, and maybe you have heard some stories from people that described our past life. I remember one story with one little girl. She was living in Great Britain, and from little childhood she told her parents, like in age from 4 or 5 or 6 years old, she was telling parents that she remembered her past life, that she spent last life in India, and she described the situation. She remembered name of this village that she was living in. She remembered name of her kids, from past life. And in the beginning, parents didn't pay attention to these stories, like thinking that, it's just a kid, imagine something. But years were passing by, and this girl didn't stop to talk about this, about her past life, and describe in details, what did she do, and how life was in her previous life. And when she was about 11, 12 years old, one journalist would like just, heard about these stories, and he would like to check this, and he, went into the internet and discovered that such a village really exists, and he bought tickets for this family and say that we could have a nice trip, because for journalists sensation is always like they're very eager to find something interesting. And they went to this village in India, and they were really surprised, because it's really, they were this village, they were these people, the names of people, and she went into this house and she said to people who lived in this house that you are my kids. And they were, quite elderly guys, like 50 or 60 years old, and she said, you're my kids, guys. I remember you. This little girl says that these old guys are just her kids. And in spite of all these details that she described, still people were doubting that she really remembered past life. And then she told that, if I would tell you where I hide some amount of money in my previous life, would you then believe me? They say, yes, sure. Was it big amount? Yeah, she said, yes, quite big amount. And she told that in one room under the floor, she hid it in next life some amount of money. And they went there, opened the floor, and they were really surprised that there were some exactly amount of money that she described. So therefore she started to believe her this way. So there are a lot of cases like this, a lot of stories about people who remember their past lives. So why we don't remember, we already discussed. And there are 3 causes of reincarnation, it's called. Like, why we can be born in one situation or in other situation. Why we have birth in some rich country or in some poor country. Somebody can be born in some kind of Western Europe, rich countries, or somebody can be born in Africa, in some very poor countries. Why it is so? Why it is like this? There are 3 causes for this. First cause is karma, as we described before. So it depends what we do now in this life. We will have next life according to our actions in this life. And also our present life depends on what we did in our previous life. If we did something good, we can have birth in some good situation. If we did something bad, we can have birth in some more difficult situations. I think that we can understand, it's easy to understand these things. Second thing is our desires. Desires are counted also by nature. That sometimes people have some desires, and these desires can determine where can person be born in next life. And these desires can lead us to different places, I could tell you. We have even such a, saying, I don't know if you have it in States or in Canada. In Ukraine, sometimes we say that, be careful with your desires because they could be fulfilled. Be careful what you want because you could get it. So it means that sometimes people have really strong desires, and this to fulfill these desires in human form of life is quite difficult. For example, I know some people who a little bit crazy about flying. They always like to fly, and they these parachutes, or I don't know how do they call it, paraplanes. This delta planes and all these things. They build all these things, and they go to mountains and jump from the mountains just to feel like this feelings that you fly, like a bird. But in human form of life, it's difficult. You have to, go high in the mountains, and it always risks that you can, just crash, just crash. But if you could have a bird body in next life, that is great. It's no problem. You can fly, like eagles fly. They can fly for hours and hours, and just enjoy, catch all this, winds and, the streams, air streams, and all this stuff, and they just enjoy flying without any risk to, get crashed. I couldn't see that eagles, get crashed, or some, pigeons, or some, sparrow just fly and then forget how to fly and fall down on the ground. Do you see like this? No, it's just sometimes it's very interesting. I live in high this floors in the high building, and sometimes I can see like pigeons walking just on the edge of the roof, just walking like this and bumping each other and, and looking down, and no fear, just no fear at all, because they can fly. It's no problem. They jump from the building and just fly. It's no problem for them. So in our next life, we can be born not only in human form of life. We can be born in some animal form of life. And the same things with fishes. There are some people who really love this, being under the water, to see all this, images, see fishes, colorful fishes. And they dream about to be a dolphin, to be some fish, because in human form of body is always difficult. You have to carry all this, heavy equipment, and there is also always risk that something can go wrong and you can, drown or something. But if you have birth like a dolphin, it's no problem. You can, live under the water and live in this sea world, It's just fulfilling desire. Human form of life is very rare form of life in our world. Sometimes people say that, we have so many people on the earth, 6 or even already 7 billion of people live on the earth, but actually it's not a big amount. If you can think how many ants live on this planet, or how many mosquitoes, how many fishes in the ocean live on this planet, so human form of life is, very rare form of life. You can experience this if you can buy some ticket, on train, and you can go by train, and you see just trees, bushes, grass, and then in a few hours you arrive into some city. Wow, people. And for a few hours you didn't see any of human beings. So you can see that human being is quite rare form of life. It's what people do makes that it's difficult. They create some problems for nature, for ecosystem. It's not that amount of people create this problem for nature, ecological problems, but it's just what people do, And as ancient Vedas says, this ancient yoga scriptures, that there is a wheel samsara exists. Maybe you have heard this word samsara. Wheel of samsara means that a person, spirit soul, remember, for example, in human form of life, if this person doesn't live like a human, so I will tell a little bit more about this later, but if a person lives like an animal, he can take birth as an animal in the next life. And then he goes down to the more simple forms of life, like from some developed like kind of animal life, like monkeys or some dogs or cows, but some more I don't know how to say it, more conscious form of life. And then it moves to more simple, less conscious forms of life, like, maybe insects or some, I don't know, fishes and plants, some microbes, bacteria, and so on. And then goes back up to the more developed form of life, and then finally reaches to the top of this samsara, and then gets again human form of life. And there are 8,400,000 forms of life in this universe. 8,400,000 lives. And if a person skips into this, wheel samsara wheel, he has to go through all this 8,400,000 types of life. And in this, you can imagine how many years, in this so many years, then finally he can reach again the human form of life. And why person skips into this animal form of life, or could skip into this animal form of life, it's not a very good situation, because there is one thing that differs human form of life from other forms of life. You know what is? Every living being have these 4 types of activity. It's just eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Every living being, humans, animals, fishes, plants, they eat. Some living entity, if there is some living entity, if there is some life, they eat something, Then they sleep. We have to give a rest to this body. Then we somehow reproduce, to create some similar form of life. And defending, self-defending. In more simple forms of life, for example, like dogs, they defend their territory, just barking, biting some other. But human beings, they don't defend their territory by biting other people. They have, fences, they have borders, they have, nuclear weapons, and so on. It's more sophisticated, but still it's the same, like self-defending. But there is one function that differs human form of life from other forms of life. You know what is it? It's capability to ask such type of questions like, who am I? What am I doing here? What is the purpose of life? Who is God and religion or something? Some ability to spiritually develop, for spiritual development. Some ability to ask these questions and ability to understand answers for these questions. Animals, they don't have this capability. Like, I didn't see so that, some 20 dogs come together and one dog is sitting in front of other 19 dogs and barks for 1 hour and everybody, very carefully listen to him. There is no such things in animal, world. Such things like capability to discuss some philosophical questions and to know about God, for example, it's just only human beings. And if some human being, if some people, they don't use this capability, there is no necessity for human form of life. Why? You can have this sleeping, eating, mating, and defending in more simple form of life with less problems. Like for human beings, everything is, quite complicated. If we eat something, we have to, choose what we eat and, hygiene and all this stuff. But pig eats everything and no problem. They stay healthy. Doesn't matter what they eat. And dogs, they also eat from the ground. Pigeons can drink the water just from the puddle, the ground, and it's no problem for them. They stay healthy. Sleeping, dog can sleep, on the grass. People, it's always, beds and all the sheets, blankets, and all this stuff. It's very difficult, Mating is the same. Dogs can, mate on the street and no hang-ups, no, nothing. They just, do what they have to do, create new, these doggies. That's all. But for human beings, it's very complicated. So why? If you live like a dog, you can have this, dog body, and your life will be more simple, no problem. People who live like animals, in the next form of life, they will receive this animal form of life in their next life. But it's not very good situation. Some people can say also that what's wrong with having, cat body or dog body? It's great. They don't do anything. They don't have to go to the work, to job. They don't have to earn money. They just sleep. As one guy said that, when I woke up in the morning, I have to, cook, shave, and my cat is sleeping. I cook for my cat. I just gave him food. He just, wake up lazy, slowly get to the bowl with his food, just had a breakfast and sleep again. I have to go to my job, and when I return from job in the evening, my cat still sleeps. What a beautiful life. Yeah, but it's not like this exactly, because we have, as we described before, that we have 4 types of suffering in all types of bodies, like in all forms of life. It's like birth, diseases, old age, and death. We had to experience, all living beings had to experience, and it's not very pleasant situation when you experience some diseases or some old age. It's not very good. We suffer. Mostly living beings are suffering in this world. Sometimes people ask, why do we have this suffering in this world? Yeah, why God, for example, couldn't create a world without any suffering? He could, and he does. There is another world, differs from this material world. There is a so-called spiritual world, or sometimes people call it kingdom of God. It's just different world where spirit soul lives without material body. For spirit soul to be in this material body, it's not natural situation, because spirit soul inside this material body, it's like inside this suit, like astronaut or something. It's not a natural situation for the spirit soul to experience birth, diseases, old age, and all these difficulties that have this body, like hunger, or it's always or too hot, or too cold. It's very rarely like it's okay. It's more often time you are too cold, or it's uncomfortable. You experience some pain here, or in the back, or in the knees, or something. It's not natural for the spirit soul. For the spirit soul, it's natural to be happy, to be fine. To be everything would be all right. And we come into this material world from some reasons, but to teach us that this material world is not our home. It was created unperfect, that there is some little suffering is built into this world, just to let us know that it's not natural place to be. It's not natural place to live for us, for spirit soul. For us, for spirit soul, it's natural to be in the spiritual world. So, the second reason for reincarnation is desires. The third reason is state of consciousness during leaving this body. So at the moment of death, what consciousness do we have? It depends, it determines what next body I will receive, I will take. For example, usually if somebody in this life have some man form of life, male form of life, usually in next life they will receive female form of life. And the same with the females. If they have in this life female form of life, it means that in previous life usually they had male form of life. Why? Because usually at the moment of death we come to the end of our life attaching, attached to some, our beloved ones. Like wife is attached to her husband, and husband is attached to her wife, and they think about this form of life at the moment of death, and they receive this form of life in the next form of life. So what we think is also very important at the time of death. And if we will get attached, for example, to loving service to God, or we can think about God, at the moment of death, we will not be born in this material life. We will go to Him, into His kingdom, and we will get out of this samsara wheel. But usually people don't think about. Usually they think about the most precious, the most important thing for them that were during the life. And therefore they think at the moment of death about this, the most important thing. Like if we would have here some fire, I don't know, maybe some. And it's difficult for us, to sit and meditate and to think about something that you would like to think. Usually if some, accident happens or something, people can, just think about different things. So this attachment doesn't mean that you can't love or can be attached, like wife to husband or husband to wife. They can be a little bit attached, they can love each other, but the most important person in their life has to be God, if they would like to, go out of this samsara wheel. If they would like to stop reincarnating. So how to stop reincarnating? How to not have birth, not receive next material body in the next life, is just to develop different consciousness. Not material consciousness, not enjoying consciousness, not consuming consciousness, that I'd like to enjoy this or that, I'd like to have this and that, me, I'd like to have this, I'd like to experience that. This type of consciousness leads to, next material body, human body, at the best, but maybe some animal even body. But if we will develop different type of consciousness that I know that I'm spirit soul inside this body. I'm not this body. This body is temporary, but I'm not this material body. I'm eternal spirit soul. And my real function, my eternal life, is to be in this kingdom of God, to be in the spiritual world, and to have this close, loving relationship with Supreme Person. If you will develop such type of consciousness, and if this Supreme Lord, this Supreme Person will be, the most important person in our life, that we would have some relationship with Him, then we can go to Him. We can go to the spiritual world. As ancient scriptures describe the spiritual world, on Sanskrit it sounds like Satchitananda, the world of eternality, wisdom, and bliss. So this world is eternal, full of knowledge, and full of bliss. There is no material body in this bodies in this spiritual world. There is no any matter in this spiritual world. Just pure spirit, pure spirit. There is no death, there is no diseases, no birth in this spiritual world. And we can go into this spiritual world if we would like. It depends on our desires, as I described before. Also, we can travel in this material world in different planets. As Vedas describes it, there are 3 types of planets in this universe. There are higher planets called heavenly planets. There are middle planets like this Earth. This Earth is middle planet, and there are some lower planets. They're called hellish planets. And spirit soul in this material body, he could, have some karma, some good or bad karma, and if if they have, for example, if one person have some good karma, he goes to heavenly planets when life is much, much better than on the earth. And a person can live there, on these heavenly planets, for some time until they will, use all this good karma. Then when good karma is finished, they go to the lower planets, to hellish planets, for some time to experience this bad karma. And when this bad karma is finished, it's just finished, they can go again, come back to this middle planets like Earth, and then gain again good karma or bad karma. And in such way, we travel. Spirit souls are traveling, living beings are traveling to the higher planets, to the heavenly planets, then go back to middle planets, then go to the hellish planets, to the lower planets, and again go back to the middle planets, and so on and so on. And this karma we can create only in human bodies. Animals don't create karma. Animals live according to this laws of nature. They live according to their nature. Like if, for example, tiger can eat some, rabbit, he doesn't receive karma for these actions because this is type of food that he eats, and he doesn't break laws of nature. For human beings to kill animals, there is no necessity, for example, but it's a different subject a little bit. This human body is created in such way so that this body can live eating plants or even sometimes animals just for surviving. But actually this human form of life is how to say it? It's such animals that eat grass, just grass. Like cows or elephants that eat just plants. They are not predators. So human body is not a predator type of life. It built in like option that for surviving he can eat some meat, but it's not necessary. So basically, like the main point about this reincarnation and karma thing, that we experience things that we did in the past. And now we have to know what to do so that we can avoid some, bad destiny for us. How to live so that we could, get purified from this previous karma and to not create new karma. There is a process called karma yoga. This is the ancient art of how to live not creating any karma and get purified from the previous karma. We can talk a little bit in the next maybe meeting, more detail, but to be short, is karma yoga when you dedicate your actions to God. When you dedicate what you do, you can live in the society, you can, have a job, have business, have family, but you just dedicate this life and things that you do for God. And therefore you develop this high consciousness, you develop this high understanding. You can see the life from the bigger perspective, birth, death, next life. You can see the life from this bigger perspective, and you can be happy in this life, and also in the next life you can go to the spiritual world and not take birth in this next life, in this another material body, and again suffer from birth, diseases, old age, and death, again and again, again and again. Do you have some questions, maybe? Yes.
You talk about children who birth with some illness because of their past lives.
Mm-hmm.
How they can change their karma in that life if they can't do anything.
Yes, they can. They can apply some spiritual process to purify their bad karma. And they can, for example, listen or chant these mantras that we chanted, that we already know about this process, and they can get purified. I don't know if it will, greatly influence their present life immediately, but it for sure will make their karma, make their life much, much better, for sure. And to be honest, I know a few cases. I know one, very unique case when one person was born in this kind of disabled body, with defects. And doctors predict to such a person that she will live, this child, will die when she will have 5 or 6 years old. When this child reached to this 5 or 6 year old, they predicted that maybe they will live till 14 years. And when this person, I know this person, when this person applied this process, was hearing and chanting these mantras, and apply all this process of Bhakti yoga, now this person is more than 40 years old. And all doctors are just shocked. They can't believe that this person with such defects could live for so long life, and this person described, she told me that before she met this process, Bhakti yoga process, she was, very often time in hospital, and, sick, and this problem and that problem. And after she applied this process, she didn't have such problems so often. Much, much more rare things just, with this body. So I know personally such a case. Maybe there are some other cases, but I know that this process works. So.
Just hears mantras, yeah?
Yeah.
But
not just hearing mantras, but this is the main process. This is the main thing, to hear and chant these mantras.
If human do not have a voice, do not have hearing, what do in this case?
He can eat prasadam. Still, a person with such defects, like you say, that if somebody would not have some, blind person or deaf person, somehow they can still, apply this process in the way they could apply. For example, they can offer some foodstuff to the Supreme Lord, and then this food becomes purified, spiritualized, and they can eat this food, and they can also get purified, like have this purified effect, like from mantras, just from food that was offered to Supreme Lord before.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Wait a second. Okay. I have a question about. You thought that there's other world with supreme world, yeah.
Spiritual world.
Spiritual, yeah. Supreme world, and in the end of life, if we live it right, and we can go there, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And
you'd like to go there?
Huh?
You'd like to go there?
I don't know yet, but
not yet.
Yeah.
You have some things to do here.
Maybe, yeah. My question that is the creatures that live in, can they go to our world?
Yes,
down,
sure.
Yeah.
Can living beings that live in the spiritual world can come to this material world?
Why? For what?
For what? It's a good question. For what?
I heard that they all enlighten, yeah, and they
Yes.
can
They
go
know
back
everything.
here for maybe for teaching, maybe for being a guru for these people who live here. You know, I heard it kind of.
Yeah, sometimes they come to help these people who live in this material world, just to come back, invite them, to tell people who live here about the spiritual world and invite them to go back home to the spiritual world. But usually people from spiritual world, they come to the material world because they use their freedom. You know, we were created free individuals. You know, we have free will. We can do, you know, what we want to do. And God created us in such a way, and He respects our freedom. You know, He likes when we love Him. You know, He likes to exchange, you know, loving relationship. But love is always free. You can't force somebody to love you. You know, you can force somebody to stay with you or something, but you can't force somebody to love you. Love is always free. And in this spiritual world, God created option, kind of door that we can go out. We can be with Him. We can have nice, friendly relationship with Him. But also, we are free. We can go and we can live. So some small amount of these spirit souls who live in the spiritual world, they decided just to live. Why? I don't know why. They understand and they know what's going on in this material world, but they just, you know, want to try.
Again, get into this samsara wheel.
Yeah.
Because, and they can get a bad karma.
Yes. In the beginning, spirit soul comes to this heavenly planets, to these higher planets, and they can, you know, live for some time, and they can experience that there is, you know, sensual pleasures. There's a big amount of sensual pleasure on these heavenly planets, but there is no happiness there. You know, there is no this real warm, very close relationship with the supreme friend. You know, there's sensual pleasure. Many people live just for sensual pleasure, but sensual pleasure is, you know, very flat. Like, you know, it's just you can have it, but many people experience it. They have a lot of sensual pleasure, but it doesn't give you real happiness, you know, real deep happiness, where you're really happy, really, you know, satisfied inside. You have some sensual, you know, flashes like tongue or some, you know, some sense of touch or genitals or something, but it doesn't, you know, gives you this inner fulfillment, you know. And people from spiritual worlds, they come into this, you know, heavenly planets, they can experience, they have some, you know, material bodies, and they can experience some sensual pleasures, but then they, you know, long for their friend, you know, and they go back to the spiritual world. But some of them, they don't go back to the spiritual world. They, you know, they look, what's there, maybe I can try this, maybe I can try that, you know, and they, you know, like, they get some karma, bad karma, good karma. They forget their previous lives, and they just, you know, go and go lower and lower. But it also in Bhagavad Gita describes that when person returns to the spiritual worlds, he never comes back to this material world again. They don't want, you know. It's like if we would, you know, be in some, you know, very unpleasant place. Like some people go to some, I don't know, maybe to some north, like to Arctica, to some Siberia, you know, and if you would live for 1 month in yurta, you know what is yurta? Like in this small tents just in the, you know, taiga, in this, you know, just snow and forest, and you have to burn fire, you know. And if you would stay there for 1 month, I doubt that you would like to come back there again. So it's similar with this material world. So many things, so many sufferings, so complicated life here. they don't want to come back here. They never come back to this material world. They just go back home where everything is, good. Richard, you have some questions?
Well, there's one thing I think about from time to time. Sometimes it's very hard to know how to treat people. We all know people who seem to have persistent bad luck.
Mm-hmm.
Who seem to be walking around with a cloud over them even when the sky is bright. And sometimes we try to help these people. I personally have found that it's very, very difficult and almost never works.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in some ethical systems like Christianity, we're called upon to love and help our neighbor, even if it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, many times in life, I've found that nothing you do for a person works, for whatever reason. There's another ethical system, such as the Greek ethical system, that says avoid people with bad luck because it's contagious. Have nothing to do with them.
Mm.
And one of the things I struggle with a little bit from time to time, even recently, has been whether to help someone who has a cloud hanging over his head when the odds are very good that I can't do anything for this person, or whether I should keep trying and trying to love and help my neighbor and make things better.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, are we supposed to be active in the lives of others, or are we free not to?
It's natural for us to experience some compassion, and it's natural for us sometimes to want to help some other people, other person, especially when we feel that we're able to help some person. It's natural. But you have to know how to help and what is real help. Because you can help some other person materially, like people can, give money for poor people, or can feed some, people who need some food, or people donate some, quite big amount of money for opening some hospitals, or some on bigger scale, charity things. But actually, this help also, it's good help. It gives good karma for people who do such help, But it's very insignificant help. It's very small type of help, because you can just improve a little bit material situation of this other people, but you don't solve the real problem of this person. The real problem of us, the real problem of living beings who live in this material world is that we are in this material world. This is the biggest problem. Like, the biggest problem that we have this karma, and you can't change karma of this other person. If this other person have some, bad karma, you can't change it.
It's too big.
Yeah. You can improve a little bit, It's like if you meet some person, hungry person on the street, you can give some, piece of bread or some, roll to this person so that they can eat. Or even you can, like come together with this person to some, restaurant and feed this person. But still, in a few hours, this person will experience hunger again. And what you gonna do? Are you going to feed this person 3 times a day, or what? How to help? It's just insignificant. But like an example is it's like an analogy that you can give a job for this person, and then this homeless person, for example, she could have a job, and then they, have completely different life, better life. You don't have to, feed them 3 times a day. And it's like, example. And the same things is, you can help people spiritually. You have to learn how to help people spiritually. You can help people to purify their karma. This is the biggest help. You can not the biggest, but the biggest type of help when you help people spiritually, when you help these people to come closer to God, when you help people to raise their consciousness so that they would not, sin again, so that they would not do these horrible things again and not have bad karma again. You can give them, you can share with them the spiritual knowledge that can help people to improve, to change their life. And you can, help people to become, to come to this, way to back home to spiritual world. This is the biggest help, how you can help. So in ancient scriptures, it's suggested to help yourself in the beginning. So before take this treasure, take this valuable things, valuable knowledge and process, apply it to yourself. And then you will see how to help these other people. Then you will have something. You will have this treasure. You will make some spiritual development and you will understand what is real help. And then you will have this, these precious things, and then you can share it with other people. And if everybody would apply this, principles, if they would start to develop spiritually and start to apply this process and this knowledge in their life, even a little bit, it would help much, much bigger than, opening hospitals and helping people materially just with their material body. Because body is temporary, So this charity, it's good. I don't say that there is no necessity for charity things. It could be, but the more important thing is much more important things to help people spiritually, not just materially. So next time, if you'd like to help people spiritually, for example, you can see some poor person on the street, you can give some, some food which was offered to God, would be great, before, or you can give some, I don't know, maybe some small amount of money, but you can also help them not only materially but spiritually. You can say Haribol to them, or say Gopala, Govinda, Rama, like to say these mantras, and these mantras, these sounds, you just say these mantras for this person, but this person get purified for such amount of karma that you couldn't even imagine. Just listening this, this spiritual sounds. So this is spiritual help also.
I would ask about the samsara and the spirit world. What was in the start? The all soul was in spirit world or in main material world? What
was the beginning?
Yeah, what was the beginning?
Yeah. There were no beginning.
It's a circle, right?
Oh yeah,
right,
samsara.
So there's no start and no.
Oh yeah, if to say about samsara, it's a circle.
Yeah,
it's a circle. But if I understood maybe that you asked about where first spirit souls came. There were no, it's difficult to understand for our mind, because our mind is used to think in these categories that we are surrounded, that we live in this material world and everything in this material world has a beginning and has the end. And it's difficult for us to imagine that something doesn't have the end and doesn't have even beginning. But it describes in this scriptures, in Vedic scriptures, that there were no beginning. We are eternal. Spirit souls are eternal. It means that we were ever existed. I don't know how to describe it. You're sitting like listening, but it's difficult to understand.
Where starts this error?
Yeah. In connection to this, I remember some short story. One time I was reading some, science fiction, this, novel, And it was science fiction, but it very nice describes this, your condition of this mind and all these things. That some people, it's science fiction. Some people just sent some spaceship into the space, with some people to some, different planet, to different star, and it had to go there hundreds of years, few hundreds, like 300 of years, and few, people grew up, and they died, they had children, and in 300 years, finally the spaceship arrived to this planet. And they were shocked because they already forget about, all this, how do you say it? People who in 300 years, they already, when spaceship came into this planet, they already forget about, Earth, they used to live in this spaceship. They were born in this spaceship, and they were, like living in the spaceship. Mm-hmm. And then they couldn't understand what's going on, what's happening, no sound, like no sound from engines. And it was shock for them that it's just, quiet. They never experienced to be quiet. Then few people, 5 people, they went out of this ship because the door were, opening, and they went out onto the grass, onto the ground. They were looking around, and the rest of people were watching them, through these windows, illuminators. And in a few minutes, they saw that these 5, first, brave men, they start to fall down on the ground. They just fell down. And they came to them and asked, "Why do you fall down?" And then these people fell down, who came to them and asked why they fell down. And finally, they recognized that, why they fell down? Because in a few moments they raised their head like this, and there were no roof on their head. And they were so shocked that there is no roof, that they just fell down on the ground. They didn't used to live without roof, and it was shock for them that there is no roof, like just open sky. So the same way it's difficult for us to understand something because our mind is using, categories that we used to have here. Difficult for us to understand. No beginning, no end, eternal. But there are a lot of things that we, don't used to see, but then we met them. Like one girl also one time described me that she was a little bit shocked when she knew that sand is yellow. I said, "What? Sand is yellow?" She said, "No. I always thought that sand is black," because she was born in this Far East, Russia, where Kamchatka, where all these volcanoes and all this, and sand is gray there, almost black. And when she came first time to our sea, we call it Black Sea, but it's not black actually. But sand is yellow, and she said, "Wow, yellow sand! What a surprise! I never thought that sand could be yellow."
No. Wow. Sand could be black.
Sand could be white, not only yellow. Yeah, you've seen white sand, yellow sand, black sand. See black sand?
Pink a little bit.
Pink a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah. Could be different color. Yeah. So maybe we can think a little bit, chant for a few minutes, and then we can have a tea. Do you remember these mantras? Haribol Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Haribol, and Gopala Govinda Rama Madana Maha. You can sit, you can relax, you can close a little bit your eyes, just to focus on these mantras, focus on the sounds. No, everybody knows what this mantra says. So, relax and just chant. Haribo, Nitai go, Nitai go. Haribo, Haribo, Nitai go, Nitai go. Haribo, together. Okay, so next time we will talk a little bit about healthy lifestyle according to this ancient Vedic system. Everybody welcome. So thank you very much for your attention. Thanks for watching. Guys, see you next time. Haribo.